All right, good. So there's two big parts. You could have written, I think these are probably equally good answers. If you're going to say, because he says two things about critical thinking that really stand out at the beginning of the essay. One, and I think there's maybe one that's a sort of a bigger thing, but yeah. Something like his language. He says on the first page, he says something like, the hallmark of good thinking or critical thinking is asking good questions. What does he mean by that? Say again. Okay. So, right, if you're asking a question, hopefully you can ask questions for a lot of reasons. One could be... Okay. So you could ask. Well, there's some reasons you could ask questions. One is for clarity. If you don't, to get a better understanding.
Yep. So, like maybe try to find holes in some of the statements.
Right.
They make.
Is this argument? Is there information accurate? Is this legitimate information? That could fold into. We're going to make an argument. Where is that argument coming from? That's a great question. This is on the model, right? This is point of view. We're going to talk about point of view a little bit more later. Everyone has one. We talked yesterday, that combination of genetics and your environments and your experiences to this point in your life shape your point of view. And that's unavoidable. At the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, I think it's Memphis, there are two doors. One's for prejudiced people and one's for not prejudiced people. And the not prejudiced people door is locked 24 hours, 7 days a week. No such thing. Doesn't mean all people are racist or bad. It just means your set of genetics, environment, experience has shaped the way you see things. That's unavoidable. That's not bad. That's just the way, that's part of being human. So your job is to figure out what your biases and assumptions are. And maybe not even necessarily get rid of them. That's very hard to do, but recognize them and work around them is something that I think good thinkers do. Good. A metaphor that I like for this one is education is not this. And I didn't major in art, so. It's not a bucket. You don't fill it up. In other words, your brain is not a bucket. Education is not acquiring information and piling up information and just making a bigger pile of information over the course of your 4 years. Your education is starting a fire. And it continually burns. It never goes out. You can't fill it up. It is a way of thinking. It's not a thing. Your degree is more like a bucket. You can fill it up with requirements, and then your bucket's full and you get out of here. That's not education. Your education is more like a fire. It never stops. You never stop asking questions. You never stop becoming educated. You never arrive as a thinker. You'll never at some day in your life say, I'm as good a thinker as I could possibly be. I think most things in life that we consider highly valuable, they're not quantifiable that way. How do you know when your marriage is the best it could possibly be? How do you know when your relationship with your parents is the best it could possibly be? How do you know when your friend you're as connected with this friend as you could possibly be? You don't. You don't arrive as a writer. You can always improve as a writer. You don't arrive as a thinker. You probably don't arrive as an athlete. I don't think I've arrived as a runner. I'll get older at some point and I'll stop getting faster. Then it just shifts. Your focus just shifts at that point. You don't arrive at things you really care about that are going to be part of your life for the rest of your life. So that's important. This is more like your degree. I was going to draw a clear distinction like yesterday when we talked about degree and education, two different things. All right. could have been another really good answer that you could have lifted right out of that essay. So if you wrote something like this, critical thinking is becoming someone who asks good questions, that's a good answer. There's another one you could have used. And I won't embarrass anyone by calling their name on a quiz, but this person wrote really good short answers, which is really what I'm after on these quizzes. This person wrote the other. Well, I don't know. Someone else did you write something? Who wrote something else? Because there's another really, really good answer to this question. Question being, definition of critical thinking as Phelps defines it.
Thinking in depth.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm going to hear what they said.
All right. Becoming aware of the process of thinking with the goal of improving it.
What I mean?
Are you Marquise? Okay. All right. That is a really good one-sentence answer. That's straight out of the essay. Yeah, more than one person wrote that because that's straight out of the chapter. First paragraph. The simplest definition is that critical thinking is simply becoming aware of the process of thinking with the goal of improving it. So if you wrote something like that, or even if you're like me, you don't remember word for word. I don't do that. Some of you obviously remember things word for word. I don't. I remember concepts. I don't remember language very well. So and again, it doesn't need to be word for word. You'll be happy to know, I think, as a student, that I'm not a word for word person. If you understand the concept, can you put your own words? That's fine. Thinking about the way one thinks with the goal of improving it. For us in this class, that is how we're going to define critical thinking. This gets at a little bit more of what a critical thinker does, but I still think this is still a good answer if you wrote something like this. It's a good answer because this is what it looks like. So either one of these, I think, would have been great. It is in-depth thinking. It is probably a lot of other things that we can say. It is about these things, but on a large scale, we're going to write a definition of what it is we mean by critical thinking. It's just becoming aware that you do have a thinking process, and you are conscious of it, and you work toward improving it. That's for us. That's critical thinking, and that's really important for us. Defining concepts is huge. If I could give you one skill out of this class, it would be that, to become aware that in order to talk to people, a lot of times what you're going to need to do is define what it is you're talking about. That's why food is going to be such a good example for us. Healthy choices. I hate that term. Healthy is the most undefined, nebulous, meaningless term there is in food world. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Someone last summer, I think, our theme it just came out of the class. Our theme became eggs. Talked about eggs a lot. People would raise their hand and say things like, "Are eggs healthy?" or they had all kinds of questions on it. They had this little one-page reading on eggs. And the reality is, you just can't answer that question unless you tell me exactly what kind of eggs you're talking about. Pizza, is pizza healthy? Well, I don't know. Are we talking about frozen Totino's pizza rolls? Or are we talking about pizza that you made with your hands with vegetables out of your garden? Like, those are two completely different things. I don't know if your pizza's healthy. You have to tell me. You have to tell me if your pizza's healthy. I don't know. We'll get into that more. But yeah, either one of these two would have been good. And you may have written other things when I read. I mean, again, it doesn't have to be that exact language. But if you're going to become a student who does well on the quizzes, that's what I'm asking for. You lifted either one of those two ideas about defining critical thinking. That's pretty close to what Phelps is going to argue, and that's pretty close to what we're going to look at. The model we're going to use. I'm going to show you the website and some things in a minute. That's what it does. Become aware that you do have purpose when you think. There is information when you read or think. You make assumptions when you read or think, and so do authors who write things. All those parts that we're going to talk about. That's what we're doing here. That's how we define critical thinking.